soup or salad, and why?
That is the question. Now, I need to know from you, is soup better or is salad better? And why do you think one or the other is?
So I have to lead off here?
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. How did that how do I ask the hard, challenging question and then I have to lead off? Wait a minute.
That's the teacher in me. Okay. So the question is, you're questioning me because you want to know. Well, let's tell me, what is the answer?
Boy, I tell you what.
Does that to their student.
You have the cycle is complete. You have turned that around. Well, what I was thinking about with it was actually sort of, when we were growing up, and I remember as kids, there were foods that I liked, and then there were foods that were boring or stupid or not to my taste, and soup and salad were two bad words in my vocabulary when I was younger. Who would want soup? I mean, it's the remains of food with water on it, heated up.
Well,
who would want salad?
I actually have to step in on this one, just for the fact because you brought up the kids thing.
Yeah.
Hey, are you interested in eating something? I'm going to put some eggs together, and I'm going to put a little sugar in it, a little bit of cinnamon, and maybe a little bit of salt and pepper, and then I'm going to dip some bread in it, and I'm going to have to make that. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, this is so not fair. This is an inside joke that we have to share with our listeners. Tell them what happened. How old were you and I when this went down?
Oh my goodness, I think I was probably about 9 or 10. So that would have made you around the 13, 14. And it was in the middle of summer. And, we did not have the convenience of just running down to a little store during the summertime to go get penny candy and stuff. Because we kind of, growing up on a farm, you have a half-mile driveway. You're not, you're not going to have a store at the end of your driveway. So you kind of had to eat what was there. And, I was getting hungry. And I don't think either one of us had really eaten anything for the day. It was probably about midday. But, being kids that we were just kind of doing our thing and realizing we probably hadn't eaten that day. And so I decided to whip myself up something to eat. And I realized that we had bread and all the making for French toast. Well, one of the things is that you had a tendency to kind of take all of the food that I would make and make me make more. And I would be stuck going, well, that was mine. And so I came about that I wasn't going to actually tell you I was making French toast. So I just told you what was in French toast. And you look, when I describe those particular ingredients, I'm going to take a couple of eggs. I'm going to kind of beat them up, but I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, maybe a little bit of salt and pepper, and maybe some cinnamon, and kind of put some bread in it, and make it from there. And when I did this, and I said this to you, you were like, "Ew, that's gross." And you thought I was making the grossest thing ever. How could I possibly eat this concoction? Then I whipped up French toast. And I'm sitting there eating French toast. And you're like, hey, that's not what you said you were making. And I'm like, yes, it is. And I said the ingredients again. And you're like, well, that's not fair.
Oh, that was such dirty pool. I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe how, it was so undesirable. You made it sound so bad that I didn't even want it until I smelled it being cooked. And then all of a sudden, I was hungry. you were right. You were right about that. That happened a lot when we were kids. You would make food, and I would do the honorable thing and eat it all, and then
right.
you would have to be forced to go back and make some for yourself if you wanted any. So I mean, that was a pretty, I say honorable jokingly because it was anything but I was definitely bad about that, and you definitely had to take some exceptional steps if you were going to get any nourishment.
So true, so true. And that was one of those moments that just kind of impact your life, kind of like when we talked about in the one episode about the blob. That one of those few times growing up as the younger sister, feeling that I actually got one past you. Because I didn't always feel that I got one past you very often. So those small little victories growing up have definitely some significant memory to me here and now in my adult years. And I look back on it more fondly than at the time where I looked at it very grumpily. But now I look back at it as very fond, and I wouldn't change a thing memories. So yeah.
Boy, how did we ever survive?
I know, really. But it makes you wonder how any sibling ever survives and still talk to each other when they grow up. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, but it was definitely. I noticed that with my children that the oldest was not always very fond of the youngest, but nobody was allowed to pick on the youngest except for him. So he was very defensive. I mean, my gosh, I wasn't even allowed to yell at my youngest one time. I remember one time my youngest was carrying on and being very, very bad at McDonald's, and he wasn't going to be able to get any food, and he was going to have to go home and, not be able to play on his video game for a while after a particular soccer game that we had come from. And I'm proceeding to punish my youngest one in McDonald's, and my oldest turns to me and says, "You don't yell at my brother." Trying to deflect, trying to protect and deflect his younger brother from getting in trouble. He was trying to get himself in trouble so that his younger brother wouldn't. But if you asked if he liked his younger brother at the time, he told you he hated him. But you couldn't mess with him. You were allowed to mess with him. And now they're becoming fairly good friends as adults. And I just think that's, really kind of neat because same thing went. When we were younger, pestering younger sister had to follow me everywhere. This is annoying, go away. And older brother, who was a geek, go away. And here we are, best of friends as adults. And, wondering how in the world did we just survive our youth. But I think our generation was the last of the latchkeys.
You think so?
I don't believe there, maybe one more generation after that, but I think we were actually the tail end of the last latchkeys because my generation, my kids' generation, laws were in place that they weren't allowed to do latchkeys anymore. And daycares popped up and financial services to help with parents for daycare and stuff like that popped up. And kids weren't left alone unless they were 13 or older. And 13-year-olds weren't even allowed to look after the younger ones yet. They had to be like 14 plus before they could babysit. So I really think that our generation was really kind of the tail end of latchkey kids and stuff. Does that mean that there still isn't latchkey kids out there? Heck no, they're still out there. But, I mean, the prevalence of them being out there is no longer the thing. It's not, the common denominator anymore. It's less calming action as a latchkey.
Right.
I think that's pretty neat.
I think it may be. It may even be. There may even be people in the younger generation who don't really understand the term.
Mhm.
So
Very
they say,
true.
what's a latchkey?
Why don't you give out that definition there, bro?
Well, I mean, it's like you said, it's reflecting the fact that previously it was, there were times when parents had to be gone, and it was really up to the children themselves to sort of run parts of their own day and take care of themselves and fend for themselves and sort of work within some system. So we were in a single parent family, and so our mother would have to go out to work, and we would have to be at home, and we would have to behave, and we would have to do chores and get things done, and that was required us to grow up and mature in ways that other children didn't, who had both parents, for example, didn't have to go through.
True. I have to give our mother a lot of credit. Back in the day when I was younger, I would never have admitted it, but it made the poor woman barely was able to keep a job, and a lot due from me, and my tendency to always find a way to be ill, and her being forced to leave work to come and get me, to the point that on threat of death, that I better not ever go to a school nurse unless I'm dying. And so, the thing is that, I have great respect for our mother for what she had to go through, because she still had to put food on the table. And then she had to deal with the two of us. And I'm sure we were not the perfect children. And we definitely could be handfuls for her. And I will give where credit is due on my part of, processing some of that major stress in her life during those periods of time. Because I'm, the perfect kid that I am now may not have always been that way.
No, say it isn't so.
I know it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like I probably did everything from the minute I was popped out, but I do think that there was a period of time that I might have given my, mother a bit of a stress moment. But, we won't share this particular video with her, so she can't go, I told you so.
Wait a minute, let her have some fun too,
Oh no, she could totally enjoy this and go, tee, I told you so.
So yeah, that's a good point. It's a great point how that all had to work out, and to me it's a good thing that latchkey is not nearly so popular as it once was, because I think children are largely safer than they were in our generation, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I remember one significant time of being younger and our parent being off working, and I'm attempting to cook us a meal. And do you remember the spaghetti water incident when I was little?
Oh yeah, I remember. Tell them.
Well, when I was younger, one of my favorite meals, and became one of the famous meals for the house, was I would make spaghetti with spaghetti sauce and stuff, but I would doctor up the spaghetti sauce we wouldn't just pour spaghetti sauce. I would make it when we had ground meat, or sometimes ground beer, which wasn't as good, but it's still there. But I would use macaroni noodles instead of spaghetti noodles. So I thought it would be a great thing to make a dinner for all of us and make spaghetti while our mom was at work. And this was back in the trailer park. This was back in Dallas. So this is going back. And I was pouring the boiling water to drain the noodles. And I was very short, not that I'm tall now, but I was quite short back then. And so to pour it properly, I poured the water towards me. And I missed the sink and got it on the counter where the boiling water went and fell in my belly.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was the middle of summertime. And so it was not like I had this big thick sweatshirt on. It was a very thin tank top type shirt that it burned a nice burn line on my belly from the boiling water. And I ran up to the neighbors. Do you remember the two sisters and the brother?
I don't remember.
The redhead, the brother with the glasses, and the younger sister that has a song that I used to sing to.
Maybe.
Oh, you're so fine. But anyways, I ran up and that their dad was home and luckily was able to help me put some ice on it and stuff like that until Mom came home to help take care of me for that. And that's when she broke her aloe plant for burn.
Oh, yeah.
To put on my belly to help it heal and stuff.
Yeah. And, believe it or not, that actually, I really learned from that incident with you. To this day, I try really hard. I remember that when I'm draining boiling waters from pasta or other things like that. I almost always remember to pour away, and every now and again I forget and I start to pour towards, and that incident comes back. I remember how badly you burned yourself, and that was a really rough situation.
Yeah. And that was like part of the incidents of, being a latchkey kid, things like that happened. And it's innocent. It wasn't in any malice intent or lack of parental care. It was just part of growing up and part of the life of a latchkey kid. And it wasn't like it was a bad thing or, oh, how dare that parent not be around. I mean, if there's any chance that I could have done that while she was standing there next to me. But it was just that whole learning incident there. Oh, and the Barfi moment sticks pretty good. That's when we were roughing it on the farm. You don't remember the Barfi incident?
Maybe.
When she got mauled. She came
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't have a telephone to call anybody. And she died.
That was so terrible. Yeah, why don't you tell the listeners about that one?
Oh, well, that again, farm life, because, poor Tater Tot, poor Mom and Pumpkin, trying to appease me to go and spend lots of money for a vet for something they already knew was going to happen, that she was going to pass away after getting stomped on by the horse. But I was insistent that they had to get medical care for her. And bless their hearts for doing that, because, that was an expense that they couldn't afford at the time, and they still did it because they knew how upset I was. They were Tater Tots. But Barfi got mauled by I don't know what creature or what animal. She was a little wiener dog, and she was a cute little thing. But she would go hunting. She taught your dog Spike how to hunt, which I really thought was funny because this little wiener dog and this little mutt Tater Tot would go hunting, and they'd have to jump to see over the field of wheat or grass or whatever was in the field. And this very tall dog that was a husky shepherd collie mix that towered over these dogs learned how to hunt by example and would literally jump over these weeds and tall grass when he didn't have to. And so he literally looked like a deer jumping through the field because he was this big animal pouncing through the fields when all he had to do was lift his head up. But Barfy, yeah, it's so cute. But Barfy, yeah, she got mauled by something. I don't think we ever figured it out. But she dragged herself home.
No, we figured it out.
What was it? What was it?
It was the next door neighbor's big dog.
Oh, I remember that dog. Now I remember why I hated that dog. Okay. Oh, yeah. I blocked that out. I really did, because I remember now every time I would go riding past with Appy, I would always yell at that dog and like think mean things. Now I remember why. I totally blocked that out. Things that make sense. But yeah, she dragged herself up onto the porch, and we were helpless. We didn't know what to do with her, and we didn't know how to handle it and what to do. And everybody was off to work. And she just, you were trying to find a way to get a hold of somebody, and I just sat there holding her as she bled out and passed away. And wow, that was rough.
Right.
And I know that when the parents came home, when Pumpkin and Mom came home, they were just as devastated, especially Pumpkin, since that was his dog. And, that was significant, and it was terrible. But we ended up having, a pet cemetery over by the line of trees, which, by the way, is still a current pet cemetery because even after I moved out and my pets would die of old age or whatever, they still go out to the farm and get buried. My kids actually know that's the tree line. When they refer to the tree line, they know that that's where the beloved family animals go when they, deserve a proper burial.
Right.
So,
it was an intense situation, and it was one of those train wrecks that I sort of saw coming, but I couldn't stop it because Barfy and the other dog T-Tots would go down to the edge of the property line, and the neighbor's dog would come up from the other side, and then they would start to, bark at each other, and the neighbor's dog was twice as big as both Barfy and T-Tots, and so, and wiener dogs are not exactly the best sprinters anyway.
Yeah, they really don't run all that fast.
No, they don't. They do not do that. And so
their 100 little steps are like 5 of a normal dog size.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. And there was and so I was, I saw them do that, and I saw the problem. And I was trying to call the dogs back because I could see that the neighbor dog was going to be aggressive about it, and that our two dogs weren't going to have a chance. And I tried to call them back, but they were almost, maybe like a quarter of a mile away. And so by the time I rushed down there to got that to break it up, it had already happened. The big neighbor dog had crossed the border and, attacked our little wiener dog Barfy, and was mauling her, and she didn't have any options to defend herself, and so it was. And of course, by the time I get down there, the big dog had already seen me coming, and I couldn't take any revenge or do what I wanted to do to that neighbor's dog. Which it was. I didn't have good intentions toward that dog.
No.
But it was smart enough, and it got out of the way. So, so we brought Barfy back, and it was pretty clear that Barfy was going to die, and it was a really tough situation.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Significant things that affect you in your days as you grow, that you remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's definitely, parts of the life of as we grow. You know?
Yeah, and there
So.
was kind of like this, I don't know, there was kind of like this lesson for me about barking, about conflict. Because I could see, that there were just people, there were people in my life who were like that neighbor's dog, who were big and aggressive and wouldn't mind, wouldn't mind taking your head off if you barked in their direction. And, I just saw how Barfy missed it. Barfy just went down and thought, hey, we're neighbors yapping at each other, and because that's what dogs do. And I think she was probably surprised when the dog crossed the property line and attacked.
Well, I also think, too, that by that particular point, the Barfy and Teacups had taunted them because that big dog usually was chained up. And I think he had broken his thing. So, and I think that was the more the intent that they were there to taunt and then, oh, poo, whoops, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Let me go yell at this dog because I know that this dog can't get me. Oh, this dog is coming after me. So that's a huge part of conflict, too, because a lot of people, they'll go in and they're going, oh, you can't get me, so I'm just going to act whatever way I want. And boom, whoops, you end up getting mauled. And it doesn't have a healthy outcome. So, yeah, that is a good life lesson. Thank you so much for being a follower. Feel free to like us and follow us on our channel. This is a really great idea. Just pop out, and it's wonderful that we kind of just come together, and we thank you for listening to us.